New York Mets are 23 days away from kicking off their 2025 season. We're almost at the finish line, and Kodai Senga will be at the starting line when the Mets are in Houston. And Senga, like I talked about on yesterday's Mets Daily, tossed 2 scoreless innings. David Peterson actually went 3. I said 2 because we're recording in the middle of the game. He went 3. But Kodai Senga, very important, debuted a new pitch, a two-seam sinker. This is a guy who could throw up to 97, 98. Now is a two-seam sinker to go along with a ghost forkball. This could be a massive year for Kodai Senga, and it's a massive year for Mets Daily. You can subscribe to Mets Daily. It's free. Share the channel. Tell your family, your friends. Let all the Mets fans know to subscribe to Mets Daily and smash that thumbs up. Please, if you're watching right now, smash that thumbs up. Comment below, what do you think about Kodai Senga? Do you think he's primed for a big year? Let us know in the comments. Remember, top 3 comments from today will be read on our Hump Day mailbag tomorrow. And then Thursday, I'm working on a special guest. Might have one of the Mets' top hitting prospects on Mets Daily. So you're going to want to be locked in for our weekly guest on Thursday. They're going to keep being great ones. Ashley was great. Figgy was great. Only great guest here on Mets Daily. So we appreciate your support. You know, I've been really big on the Acuna Matata train with Luisangel Acuna and Brett Baty in that competition, with Acuna, moving over to play some third, Brett Baty moving over to play some second. The Mets seeing, hey, can our young infielders be a little bit versatile? Now, Brett Baty hasn't really played short. Acuna can. Acuna can play third, second, short, center field, where Brett Baty is pretty much a third baseman and a second baseman, maybe a sprinkle of first if the Mets needed him. But, the debate is on, and it depends what kind of person are you. Are you the person that says, you know what, he had better spring training stats, he gets the job? Or are you the person similar to me, where I think it's the guy that provides more value for your roster than what they did for me in spring? So let's break down the competition, and you let us know in the comments, would you rather Brett Baty or Luisangel Acuna on the opening day roster on March 27th for Mets Astros? And like I say every day on here, that could change 2 weeks later. So let's break it down. Let's take a look. The case for Luisangel Acuna is this. To me, he's a right-hand hitter. You can platoon him with Jeff McNeil. Because Brett Baty's a lefty, if Brett Baty were to play second some days, you have no variety. You have no right-handed bat off the bench in your infield. So to me, Acuna immediately fills that void. That was the void that Nick Madrigal was going to fill, but Nick Madrigal now is out for the season. So I like having that right-hand hitter. A lefty comes into the bullpen, faces McNeil or faces a Baty. You got to keep him up there because you got no one to pinch it and fill in there. So remember, those Mets, Winker can't really play the infield other than first. Marte can't play the infield. The Mets don't have another insurance option. So to me, Acuna helps in that aspect. I said he could play shortstop. Brett Baty can't. God forbid Francisco Lindor gets hurt in a game, or it's a blowout and late in a game you want to sit him and rest that back that ailed him last year. You have that option with Luisangel Acuna. Stealing bases. This is where I love Acuna. 40 stolen bases in AAA. He didn't have any in the brief time for 2 weeks with the Mets. He tried to steal one, got caught, but 40 in AAA. He's notoriously a good base stealer. That's something Brett Baty's not as good at. So Luisangel Acuna, think about it. Late game, big spot. Say it's Pete Alonso at first. It's a tie game in the 9th inning. You got Acuna on the bench. You put Acuna in there to try to swipe that bag and try to end up scoring. We've already seen in spring his ability to steal bases. That's really something I love about Acuna. Like I said, elite defender at second and short. Just started playing third. I'm sure he wouldn't have much trouble playing third consistently. And in the short sample size, he did hit 3 homers, and he hit 308 in 14 games for the Mets in that playoff push in September. Now, the case for Brett Baty, he's having a stronger spring. So, like, if you were someone who goes off, what have you done for me in spring? Brett Baty would win the job. 8 for 18, 2 homers. He's off to a great start. He obviously got the new Chevy Tahoe, so he's motivated by having the new car that Juan Soto got him, while Acuna is 2 for 13. More big league experience. Brett Baty over 3 seasons, and really 2. 2022 was a cup of coffee. 2023 was really the year he, played a majority of the time. He played 108 games, 353 at-bats, 50 games, 153 at-bats last year. So he does have more big league experience. 15 homers, 55 RBIs over the 3 years, 215 average, 282 OBP. So They're not really good numbers, but he does have more experience. Only 2 stolen bases over those 3 years. So really not a guy who is ever going to steal a base for you. Less options to be sent down. I believe he only has 1, maybe 2, where Acuna has more. So you do have less wiggle room in terms of flexibility for Brett Baty now that he's been in the big leagues for a couple of years. It's just how contracts work. You can't set him up and down and up and down. Now, that's not a massive option, but it is something to consider when you're talking about the beginning of the season and seeing how a guy does. That does factor in. Having him start beginning of the year and chances to play, you could showcase himself more than just spring and, BP and spring training at-bats for a potential trade. I do think Brett Baty does get traded eventually, and if he gets some at-bats, and if he does find some at-bats in the big leagues, you do have a shot to trade him. And now that he has played some second, he has some versatility. So those are the reasons for Acuna. Those are the reasons for Baty. I say Luisangel Acuna. I think he is a dog out there. And I say dog. You see, I got my Cellar Dog sweatshirt. This thing is fuego. I mean, can we talk about how clean this is? Shout out to Cellar Dog, my guy Eric. They got it in West Village. They got it here in Philly, where I am, by Philly. They sell it on their site, cellar.dog. So, you could tell them, make more of the orange and blue ones. This one's a customized Jake Brown radio special, but check out Cellar Dog. And I think Luisangel Acuna is the big dog. Starling Marte is a pretty big dog, but is Starling Marte going to be the Mets starting DH, platoon DH, I should say? According to Joel Sherman of the New York Post, he's reported that the Royals are back and have some interest in a Starling Marte trade. Remember, my colleague at Mets on SI, Pat Ragazzo, talked early in the offseason that there was talk about a trade with the Royals for Hunter Harvey, but it didn't get done around the winter meetings. Well, apparently they're talking again. And listen, I think this trade makes a lot of sense for both sides. The Royals right now, their outfield is Kyle Isbell, Hunter Renfroe, and MJ Melendez. Their infield has Maikel Garcia on it and Michael Massey. So out of those guys, Starling Marte is better than most of those. So you can find a spot for one of them, and you can move Jonathan India to one of those infield spots and make Marte your DH. He would fit perfectly in a Royals lineup that could use another hitter, a Royals lineup that is looking to get back to where they were as a playoff team. So, again, it's $21 million, a lot of money, 20.75 or 20.25, whatever it is, 20 plus million. The Royals seem comfortable with adding money. Mets maybe have to eat some of that. But can the Mets get a deal done? They apparently balked on Harvey and maybe balked on Angel Zerpa, a lefty in that bullpen. Another guy in that bullpen, a lefty, Sam Long. Lucas Urseg, they're probably not going to do. John Schreiber, Carlos Hernandez, Chris Stratton. Those are the relievers in that bullpen. Remember, the Royals have Carlos Estevez, so they got their closer. They have a really good bullpen with all those guys. Can the Mets find a way to get Zerpa and give themselves another lefty? AJ Minter, Angel Zerpa. You talk about 2 really good lefties in that Mets bullpen. That makes a lot of sense for the Mets, but will the Royals be comfortable adding that Starling Marte contract? That's what we'll have to find out. Well, we know if Starling Marte's healthy and not traded, he'll be on the roster. But we don't know if Max Kranick will be on the roster. And Max Kranick, don't panic. Don't panic, in the words of the great philosopher French Montana. Don't panic, Max Kranick. That kind of rhymes. Because Max Kranick is quietly having himself a nice spring. And if you remember his name, I've talked about him on here because he was on the Mets wild card playoff roster. Yet he had not pitched in a Major League game since 2022. And now Max Kranick is showing off this spring. In 5 1/3 innings, no runs, no walks, 6 strikeouts. And you look at that chart. I mean, this guy has some filthy stuff. He gets up to 97 on that fastball. He's got a filthy sweeper. He's got that slide. This is a guy that goes from 97 to 87 to 81. I mean, that is filthy, and he's looked really good in spring. And this is where spring stats matter for those fringe bullpen roster pieces. Will they make the team or not? Max Kranick is a guy with a chip on his shoulder. He's 27 years old. Like I said, he hasn't pitched in the big league since 2022. In AAA Syracuse, he was pretty good with a 3.57 ERA in 63 innings last year. He had 9 starts in 2021 for the Pirates where he wasn't very good. And like I said, he was on the Mets wildcard roster. So the Mets thought highly of him that he could be on a playoff roster and appear at some point if they need him. I think the Mets like Max Kranick stuff, and I think you should too. And he's a name to continue to keep an eye on this bullpen, because if I had to guess right now, and I wrote my Mets on SI roster predictions yesterday, I put Max Kranick as the last guy on the roster along with Sean Reed-Foley in that bullpen. So shout out to Max Kranick. Good for him. Don't panic, Max Kranick, because I think on opening day in Houston, you find yourself on the New York Mets roster. Do you think Max Kranick is on the roster? Let us know in the comments. You got another name. And do you think the Mets should trade Starling Marte for Angel Zerpa or one of those other relievers in that Royals bullpen, and Acuna or Baty? I want all those answers. We're reading your top 3 answers on tomorrow's Mets Daily. Hit that subscribe. Smash that thumbs up. Follow me at Jake Brown Radio on all social media. Thank you so much for watching Mets Daily, and we'll see you tomorrow on March 5th on a hump day right here on Mets Daily.